Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with fabulous concert programs number 89. And oh, fabulous they are. My goodness. This is the second in our Tournemire cycle. And although it's the second video, it's our number 89 in the fabulous concert program series. We're dealing with Symphony number 3. Moscow, which needs no introduction since I've recently done a video in the What Are You Listening to Lately series, where I talk about this very work, a gorgeous, beautiful, luminous, fabulous work based on the bells and the modalities of Russian folk songs and the churches and it's lovely. Tournemire was a very spiritual composer, actually, in his own interesting way. And so you can check out that video if you want more details on the Moscow Symphony. But, part of the thing, Moscow 1913 actually is like the full title, because that's when he wrote it. But I really wanted to put it in context, find a beautiful way to feature this work as the culmination of a concert. Some of the tunes in that symphony you'll recognize. I mentioned this before. The bell sounds you can hear in the Rachmaninoff suite for two pianos, the first suite, for example, the last movement. It's really very, very interesting. But anyway, so I've come up with a program that features two Russian folk song things by Russian composers and two Russian-influenced things by French composers. And that, I think, is really just going to be a lot of fun for you to enjoy at home, which is the only place you're going to hear this program. Let's face it. Maybe someday. I have to confess. Let's talk talkless here. I have this sort of sneaky hope that someday some conductor out there will take a look at these programs and actually play one of them or two of them, actually do some of this stuff. It would be so much fun. I mean, for me, I'd be honored. I mean, I think audiences would really enjoy it. But it depends on where they are and what the audience is and all the politics around programming and who's in charge of those things. So let's talk about this particular program. Right off the bat, Balakirev, his overture on 3 Russian themes. Do you know that overture? If you don't know that overture, you absolutely owe it to yourself to hear that overture, because those themes you will recognize. One of them is from Petrushka, the nurse's theme, the knight's theme, the one in the last tableau there. Ya da 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 dum, ya da 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 da. That one. That's in there. And then the subsidiary theme in the finale of Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony, ya-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum. That one. Although Tchaikovsky turns it into a 3-bar theme, it's really a 4-bar theme in the way Balakirev does it. So it sounds quite different. And there's some other stuff there too. It's fascinating to hear these themes deployed differently. One of the interesting things about Stravinsky actually is that his reputation in Russia, in light of his early works, was not very high. And the reason it wasn't very high is because everybody in Russia knew Rimsky-Korsakov and they knew these tunes from earlier works, whereas in the West, they were as good as unknown. So Rimsky-Korsakov got all this credit for these fabulous, his fabulous treatment of the Russian folk heritage, whereas in Russia, they'd been doing it for decades. And he was considered as something of an opportunist who made his reputation in the West as, an original peddling stuff that Russian composers had been doing all along. Of course, the originality in Stravinsky had nothing to do with his material, but rather how he treated it. And in any case, the Balakirev is just one of those pieces, because they would have known right away when they heard Petrushka. It's like, that's Balakirev. And you should know as well that it's Balakirev. So that's the first number. Then we got to do the concerto. What concerto should we do? Well, here's an interesting novelty. Edward Lalo's Concerto Russe for violin and orchestra. It's a violin concerto. It's a Russian concerto. Who knew? Lalo's very well known for his other ethnic violin concerto, the Symphony Espagnole for violin and orchestra, which I absolutely detest. Oh, God, I hate that piece, because I got trapped playing the snare drum in the finale for a Suzuki violinist back when I was in college, and she was rehearsing, and we'd be going da 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 ba 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 da 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 schnuck da 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 schnuck. Oh, it drove me crazy. Oh my God, it drove me crazy. Anyway, and you have to wait till the finale before you get there. So I was sitting there like, bored out of my mind. Okay, I don't like the Symphony Espagnole. The other thing I don't like about the Symphony Espagnole and Lalo kind of generally, also true of his cello concerto, is that he was hopeless when it came to sonata form first movements. I mean, the symphony in G minor is not too bad. And this piece isn't too bad. Somehow it flows a little better. His idea of like sonata form first subjects was a nondescript theme interspersed with loud orchestral outbursts. So you hear tune, 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 whack, whack, tune, 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 whack, 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 tune, tune, tune. Just listen to the cello concerto. You'll see what I mean. It just drove me nuts. I mean, it was so formally dysfunctional and uninteresting. But the fact is, he was a good second-tier composer. His best work, I think, is Namuna, the ballet, because the French are always great when they're doing ballets. Oh, it's a beautiful ballet. It's wonderful because it's mostly short pieces. He doesn't have to worry about large forms, and he can just be colorful and tuneful. And, the Rhapsody Norvégienne, that's beautiful too. So he wrote some good stuff. And the Concerto Russe is one of those unknown pieces of concertosity that people just don't know, and I really think they should. So there you go. That's the end of the first half that will bring us to a lovely conclusion for intermission. And then we're going to come back for part 2, where we have to do Glinka's Kamarinskaya, which is a perfect overture type thing. It's like 6 minutes long, 7 minutes long. It's very, very short. It's based on 2 alternating Russian folk tunes. It's absolutely lovely and charming. It was the origin of all of the later music that used Russian folk music, because Glinka wrote it was like the 1840s or something like that. It's early, and it's just wonderful, and it makes a perfect introduction to Tournemire's Third Symphony, which we have already discussed. And so I think this is a wonderful program for you to enjoy at home. I urge you to give it a shot. There's an excellent performance of the Concerto Russe, by the way, on bis, with, who's it, Jean-Jacques Kantorov, I think. He's either conducting or playing the violin. It's on bis. It's coupled with the piano concerto, which is a whole nother kettle of beans. But that's a lovely recording. And all the other stuff you shouldn't have any trouble finding. It's just lovely. A great time to be had. Discovering some really marvelous music that doesn't deserve its neglect. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.